Hello, everybody. It is a seller's market, okay? And so, with that being said, it being a seller's market, you have to come up with tips and strategies in order to get the result that you want. The result that you want is to win. You want the house, all right? So again, hello everybody. It's me, Danielle J. Mitchell, your become queen of real estate, and thank you for joining me for today's and this week's Tuesday tip at 2. My apologies that I'm tardy for the party, but after a holiday weekend, trying to prepare and get everything together, it happens sometimes. But let's talk about it. So tip number one of the tips that can help you win an offer, win the house that you want, is going in above asking, right? Going in above asking. It is super common during this process within this market to go in above asking, okay? It is a given at this point. It is just like to go in at asking price at this point. It's just like, I guess you don't want this house. You must not. You must not really like it because, excuse me, it is a must to go in most times above asking price, even if it's a little, right? Sometimes, some one of the things that can, and we're going to talk about this. I want to preface this by saying that doing one of these strategies or a combination of a few of them or all of them is what's going to help you, right? So it's not just about the price, right? It's also the terms, right? And we're going to get into some of that term stuff. But the first thing is, one strategy is, of course, to go in above asking, okay? Another one is to put down a larger earnest money deposit, okay? So coming in, tip number 2, coming in a little bit more with your earnest money deposit. I've talked about this before. Earnest money deposit can be anywhere between 1%, 2%, 3% of the purchase price of the house. So I like to really do 3% of the purchase price as opposed to 1 or 2%. So I would always suggest doing 3% again, especially in this market, but you can definitely put down more than that. Now, as I've said before, your earnest money deposit is always going to go towards your closing cost, right? Some people feel, leery of going in more because it's like, well, what if we lose the earnest money deposit? And honestly, most times, even if there's a situation where you could risk losing your earnest money deposit, most times if you go through arbitration and stuff, you'll get it back. But quite frankly, unless you're just legit, like, I don't want this house anymore, just cause, right? There's no legitimate reason. It's outside of the guidelines of different contingencies and different things that's in the agreement to sell. Then you're putting your earnest money deposit at risk, right? Typically, if something like family wise happens, you're going to get your earnest money deposit. Like if something like an emergency comes up where it's just like, I can't go through with it, then you're going to get it back, right? So again, larger earnest money deposit, that just means you're going to bring less closing costs to the table. That's all that means. Okay. So another strategy now, earnest money deposit, we're talking about terms. So that's like a part of the term of you doing the agreement to sell. Another term is to waive inspections. Okay. Another term is to waive inspections. So waive an inspection, what does that entail? You have an inspection contingency. You have to get your inspections done within typically 10 days of the executed agreement to sell, right? So when you put in an offer to waive inspections, it means that you're removing that inspection contingency, which means that if there's something wrong with the house, the seller is not liable to fix or repair or to give a credit, right? Now, I always suggest that you have to really, if you're going to waive inspections, it has to make sense, right? So if it is a rundown home, you're working with a certain amount of money, you're not going to have money to fix it up. If there was something wrong with the property, there are some reasons as to not doing the wave of inspection. But let's say you're getting a newer home, a very well kept home. There's nothing alarming that is coming up through the walkthrough of the home, then waiving inspections might be a good option, right? If you're getting a solid home, you can see it. It's nothing like scary looking. The appliances, the heating system, the conditioning system, all those things are in good condition. Your basement is a good looking basement. You find out a lot about a house in regards to the basement. Maybe you see in the seller's property disclosure, it's a newer roof, it's a newer this, that, and a third. Then waiving an inspection might make a lot of sense, right? So another thing, the other option, if you just don't want to waive inspections completely, is to keep it as a contingency, but limit the liability of the seller, right? So maybe it's like, okay, it's a house that maybe, you might have some concerns about. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to keep the inspection contingency, but cap it at $1,500, $2,500 that the seller is liable for. Anything beyond that, the buyer will take care of. That is another option as well. Kind of a part two to this is waiving appraisal. Waiving appraisal is I don't always recommend for my buyers, right? Because you want to have something. You want to have something in the agreement to sell if it does not work out, where you have an escape exit, okay? If you just really love the house, if you have the cash for the house, where if it appraises more than if the appraisal comes in, let me see. If the appraisal comes in where the house is worth less than what the purchase price is, you have to make up the difference. Okay, so let's say the house, the purchase price is $250, the house appraises at $245. You need to make the difference because the mortgage is only going to give you the $245. So you have to come up with the extra $5,000. Of course, still having your closing costs as well. Okay, so if you really love the house, if you have the funds to do it, it is also a strategy. Again, all of these strategies are subject to your specific scenario, your finances. All of these factors come into play when saying, okay, what strategies are we going to use in order to, make a strong offer, right? So again, another strategy, this is number 4, maybe 5, is putting in what's called an escalation clause. Escalation clause is an addendum, a document that says, I am going to, okay, so let's say $250 is my highest amount I want to offer on this house. Maybe the asking price, the list price is $210. And you're like, I will go above your highest offer by increments of $500, $1,000, $10,000, with my cap being $250. That's the highest and best I'll go, right? If it goes beyond that, then I'm out. I've used it. It was effective. Realtors have their own feelings in regards to the addendum. Realtors run, their own business and how they like to do business. Some realtors love them, some realtors hate them, and it can work. And a lot of times, one of the things that I will do if I use the escalation clause is I'll in the offer I'll write the verbiage out, saying, hey, pretty much explaining what I just said, right? Because sometimes people, depending on the realtor, they may not are not familiar with that particular paperwork. So it's always good just to have clarity. I like to explain offers anyway when I submit them. So it's always good to have that clarity. Also, in your offer, keep it simple. Ask for minimal. Know when to ask for a home warranty, know not to. I definitely suggest it if necessary, if need be, if it makes sense. But it's not always going to make sense in every case. So just be minimal on what you're asking for what you want the seller to do, all those different things. You keep it as simple, as basic as possible, because the seller at the end of the day wants to get in and out. They don't want to hassle. They just want a smooth transaction, get it done, and go on their merry way. Okay? Clean paperwork. Now, hopefully you are working with myself or at the very least with somebody who's an excellent communicator as well as excellent in their administration. Because when it comes to writing up paperwork, and I've had seller's agents, if I'm acting as your buyer, I've had a seller's agent one time really, compliment me on my offer and my communication. And that's what edged me out against other offers that could have been better. I know for sure a few times it's been offers that have been quote unquote better, but because I was strategic in what I did, because I made offers that made sense, that wasn't, people are going over asking price, but it's to the point where it doesn't make sense, right? So it doesn't make sense to go $60,000 over asking and you have an appraisal contingency, right? Because if it don't appraise at that, then none of it makes sense. You know what I mean? So some people do things just to win the deal. And there are those agents out there that see that, of course, and they're just like, listen, we just want to keep it simple. We just want to get to the finish line. And so to have not only a realtor, but also a lender who is reputable, who can get the stuff done, who's communicative, goes a long way. It goes a long way in getting an offer accepted. I'm a person, when I inquire about putting in an offer, I'm communicating, I'm saying, hey, let's be best friends for the next 30 and 45 days. And when you can hand them clean paperwork where, that's not a whole bunch of mess ups, where a lot of times listing agents will have on there a list of, like what's called a presentation of offers. So pretty much what they want included in the package, which is the offer, right? So you want to make sure that you have a realtor that can follow that, that can follow directions, and that can present things in a professional manner, that will help edge you out. Because you'll be surprised that those small details can edge somebody out, right? Because the seller's agent is looking at the competency, right? So if it's going to be, a pain in the butt for the next 30 to 45 days, 60 days, working with an agent, they're less likely to want to accept that offer, right? But when you have an agent who's able to be efficient in what they do, communicative as well as have good administration skills, it makes life easier for both sides of the deal. Okay. Finally, you just want to be flexible. You want to be flexible. You want to have a give and take mentality when you're putting in an offer. You just want to do things that makes sense and that is strategic. It just has to make sense, right? So at the end of the day, you can get the house that you want. Okay, we got to do things that make sense. So if it makes sense to waive inspections because it's like, okay, this is a solid house, it's clearly been maintained, it's clearly, the seller's property disclosure, which tells you the information on the property, everything that the seller knows is clean. And listen, also, back to inspection for a moment, I always say, even if you waive inspection contingency, you still always get an inspection done because you need to know what's going on with the property. You need to know. So to know it, to have an idea of what's going on with the property, is always good. So even though you waive it, still get it done. But the verbiage is, inspection will be done for informational purposes only, right? So those are some tips on and strategies on winning an offer. Okay, like I said before, it is a combination of these things, all of them, some of them. It just really is specific to the property and it's specific to the buyer, your needs, what you're working with, where we can do these things, these strategies. And listen, that's what's helping me to be successful in getting my clients into the houses that they want. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining me for today's and this week's Tuesday Tip or Two. You know what you can do. You can go to book.djmrealtyco.com if you're ready to strategize about in regards to getting a house, getting your offer accepted, and making that step. Don't be leery and intimidated by this market. You just got to prepare, be informed, and like I said, have a strategy that works. All right, remember, there is no place like home, no place like home buying. I will see you next week for another episode of Tuesday Tip at 2. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff if these tips are helping you. Bye-bye.